It's good that everybody's so lively after lunch, with everyone being as tired as they should be after the desserts. Okay, so we've got two options today. We can either go with light speed or ludicrous speed. Okay. I don't think I can do it. I ate a lot of dessert. I'm tired. All right, so let's just go with light speed. So this is the State of the Union, and I sort of wanted to open up talking about where we were, and this wasn't supposed to be funny, except that we've still got a problem. So yeah. Congress does not look like this right now. Our State of the Union here for Digium phones is much better than that, we hope. So May the 20th, earlier this year, was the last time we did a release. On that date, we did the Digium phone module for Asterisk 1.6. What did we do there? We did some bug fixes. The first thing we fixed, new extensions that you create on the system, well, they weren't getting their presence auto-populated, and that was kind of crummy because when somebody would boot up a phone for the first time and you've got them as a contact on the system, you didn't know what their presence was until they actually set it on their phone. And that's just, that's no fun. Whoops. We had another whoops in that the syslog server, if you set that, you couldn't remove it. So once you turned on syslogging, it just blasted it at the server forever until you rebooted the phone. That's also a whoops, but we fixed it. We had some new features. The first one there was the PC port VLAN support, and that's kind of nice because the phones have all got two ports. There's the WAN port and there's the PC port, and the phone's always been able to do VLAN binding of itself, but the PC port VLAN support is nice too because you can take a device like a laptop, put it behind the phone, and then anything that egresses the PC port for the WAN side gets tagged with whatever VLAN you want, and anything ingressing and going from the PC port out to the device gets untagged. So that's really handy because you can do VLAN tagging for anything that's behind the phone, and the device itself is none the wiser. It's really nice. So we also did phone firmware 1.3.3 on this date. Bug fixes for that, LLDP for the win. Again, because we had to fix it once in 1.1.2. We had to fix it again in 1.3.0.0. We had to fix it again in 1.3.0.2, and we really crossed our fingers back in May, but since then we haven't had any problems. So that's really good. We like that, and hopefully we will never have any LLDP problems again. So since then, it's seemingly been all quiet on the Western Front. You haven't really heard anything from us. It's been very silent. But in reality, we've actually been very, and I lied, I do have some audio. Does anybody get that? Can you hear that? That's the busy tone, ladies and gentlemen. We've been very busy. That's the last bad joke I'll tell. So doing what exactly? Well, we've got a new DPMA release. It's version 1.7. It's got 100% more cowbell, and we've got a new phone firmware, version 1.4, with 200% more awesome. What did you guys do? Well, we fixed some bugs, again, because that's what we like to do. Again, it was more presence things. We had an issue with presence startup, and we had an issue with custom presence. So if you had custom presence states, right, the phone by default, it'll come with the basics. Available, do not disturb, unavailable, away, extended away, prefer chat. But if you want to put some custom ones on there with some other sub-statuses, like away at lunch, away in a meeting, away in the bathroom, you can do those sorts of things. But if you did that and you did an asterisk reload, the DPMA would get confused, your present states could get weird if you changed them on the phone versus what was in the server, and it was general badness. So it's vanquished. We also fixed an issue with SIP peer case matching. So if you had a SIP peer that was named all lowercase Bob123, and you decided that you wanted to configure a phone with that, everything was fine, but if you changed it from lowercase Bob123 to uppercase Bob123 and issued a reload to the phone would get lost, and it didn't know what its SIP peer was, and that was the DPMA's fault. And we fixed an issue with the logging behavior. It didn't make a whole lot of sense for application developers because we were forcing them to turn on a syslog server if they wanted to get logging output for their applications running on the phone, and that's just no good because why do you need to blast all that traffic at a syslog server that's not there? You don't. Okay, we added some features too. So one of those was network selection. So the phones have all of these settings that you can set on the asterisk side in the DPMA, things like the brightness, or the volume level, or the locale. And you can actually lock down all of those settings so that somebody who's using the phone can't change any of them. It's really nice if you don't want somebody messing around. But we had inadvertently allowed people to still play with the network selection on there so that somebody could go in and change the network from one to another. We changed that, and it's sort of a new feature, so that now you can no longer manipulate the network settings if the lock is turned on. We also added options to control the LAN and PC port speed. So if you've got a gigabit phone like the D70 and you want to tune it down and have it be 100 base full duplex, that's fine. If you want to have it be 10 base half duplex, that's fine as well. And we also changed the number of contact subscriptions. So they used to be locked at 40. So you could take a big phone like the D70 with all of its pages, but you only got 40 subscriptions. Well, that's been lifted now, so you can do as many subscriptions as you want. So if you want to do 105 subscriptions on a D70, that's just fine. And we also added a UDP keep alive interval for those pesky NAT routers. So that's the situation we've got a phone behind a NAT router, and that NAT router likes to time things out every 60 seconds or so, and then your phone goes away, and that's bad for Asterisk. It's bad for BLFs. It's bad for phone applications. So there's a new option now that lets you control the interval at which the phone will send a lightweight keep alive message into Asterisk. It's just a carriage return line feed, looks like a blank SIP packet, but it keeps NAT routers happy. And so that was nice for me because I've got a lot of ADTRAN routers and they made my phones unhappy without this. We added some features too. The logos and the contacts that are attached to the phone can now be retrieved from the file URL prefix instead of the file directory. Why is that good? Well, we've got other things that are retrieved from the file URL prefix, and this is where the phone will curl in things. The phone curls in firmware, it's really huge. The phone curls in ringtones, but it was retrieving logos and contacts over SIP message packets. And that's just not terribly efficient from the perspective of what Asterisk is having to do to take that logo or that contact file and then break it up, send it over in SIP messages, and then the phone's got to get it out of that. But it's also not good from the administrative perspective because you've got things that are related to the phone in two different locations, and that's no fun. You want to try to put as much of the stuff as you can all in the same location so that you're not managing two things. We also changed the default SIP notify behavior. So it used to be, with DPMA 1.6 and everything before, that when you booted a phone up and attached it to DPMA, we went ahead and we disabled the SIP notify restart behavior. Why did we do that? Well, it's just bad. It's totally insecure. It means that somebody can reboot a phone, but that turns out not to really bother a lot of people because everybody just does it. So it's convenient, though, for certain situations. Let's say you've taken a phone, you've booted that phone up, and the server's not there yet. Well, because before we were disabling that behavior, you then didn't have a way to sort of tell a phone to put itself back through the server discovery process. You had to go and shut down the power on the PoE switch for that port, and that's not a lot of fun. So we changed the default, so now SIP notifies are enabled for the phone by default, so you can enjoy that. We also added headset and handset side tone gain manipulation. So the side tone is what you hear coming back from the phone when you're talking in it. So if you're on the phone call, you can hear a little bit of yourself there, either on the headset or on the handset there. And we had some people that really wanted a little bit more. They couldn't quite hear themselves as well as they liked. Now, having said that, I really want to caution you to never, ever, 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 ever actually touch these. We did add it, but it was with much trepidation. You really don't want to mess with these. Everything on the phone in terms of the volume, the acoustics, the echo cancelers, they're all tuned for the default behavior, and when you go messing with this, bad things can happen. But they're there if you have to absolutely have them. So that guy really wanted more cowbell, he got it. All right, is that it? No, of course not. If I can get the slide right. All right, so let's talk about BLF keys really quick. So this is the D40. You can see it's got two keys on there, right? It's got one line key and one key that's sort of a spare key. It can be another line, it could be a BLF. Then we've got the D50. The D50 has got 4 line keys, so it's really got 3 spare keys, and then it's got 10 keys on the side right there that you can do things with. And then there's the D70. So it's got 6 lines, which means it's got 5 spare keys. You put a line on the first one. It's got 10 keys on the side, and then it's got these page buttons at the bottom down there that allow you to flip pages. So you can get 10 pages there, gives you 100 contacts. It's really nice. But BLF today is, kind of small, right? It's for contacts. That's what you put on those keys. And it's got really just 2 functions. If you're not on a call and you press the BLF key, it dials that person. And if you're in the transfer state, meaning you've pressed the transfer button and you press that rapid dial key, you can do attended transfers to get people over to other callers. And then the LEDs, they're preset. So if somebody's on the phone, they're red. If somebody's idle, they're green. If somebody's ringing, they flash red. So all that's just taken care of it, or all that's taken care of for you. But that's not really how people use phones. The way people use phones is much more complicated, and it's specific to their business. And they're trying to simplify their workflow as much as possible, and they don't have a lot of flexibility to do that today. So Phones Firmware 1.4 provides something we call Smart BLF. And Smart BLF is a framework for building intelligent BLF keys on your Digium phones. All right, let's talk about some of the high-level capabilities. So the first one I'm going to talk about is applications. So let's say you've got some apps on your phone, because you do. We've got some built-in ones that are there: contacts, voicemail, parking, status, queues, right? Or even a custom application that you've built. And if you want to learn more about that, stay for Sean's. But you can take those, and with Smart BLF, you can map those applications to one of the BLF keys, so that when you press that key, that application gets loaded. Why is that nice? Well, even for some of the built-in applications, it's a handy shortcut. So take the parking app, for example. Right now, to get to the parking application on a D70, you can press the apps button, you can scroll over to the parking application and select it. It's about 5 keys. On a D40 or a D50, you press the check button, it pulls up the menu, then you can go to applications, and you can get the same thing. So it's a lot of steps sometimes. So it simplifies your workflow for any of the built-in applications, but more importantly, if you've built your own applications, it allows you to load those directly onto the keys, giving the customer easy access to your app. So the next thing is location. This is what it looks like before. So if I've got a contact list and I put it onto a Digium phone, what you're going to get is this ordered indexing. So everything from the contacts file is going to get dropped onto the next available slot, whether it be a line key or whether it would be one of the slots over on the side panel, like on a D70 or on a D50. So that's nice, but it's not a whole lot of flexibility, right? People want something more. So now with the location and capability in Smart BLF, we can actually do that. So here I've put a parking lot application on the 6th line key there on a D70. And I've also got on page 1 of my sidecar, I've got the sales queue on one key, I've got the support queue on another key, I've got a blank spot, I've got 2 contacts, and then I've got a whole bunch of nothing, just for the purpose of demo. And then over on the second page, I've got, you can see that I don't have Billy Chia right there, who's 102, and I don't have David Hardy, who's 103. I've made them go away on the second page. They only show up on the first page. I've got a humor line, and I've got an office toggle at the bottom. So you'll see up top there, the sales queue and support queue, they stay the same on every single page using something we call pagination. And that's, again, nice if you're building your own application, right? You can tie it to a key and have that application always show up regardless of what page you're on. It's really, really handy. All right, what's next? Conditional behavior. So you can do behaviors for these keys, for what you're doing, depending upon the status of the target, right? So if you've got a subscription to another device that's out there, like another phone or some custom state in Asterisk, you can do different things depending upon the state of that, just the status of that target. Is it unavailable? Is it idle? Is it on the phone? Is it ringing, right? But you also get the ability to do behavior based upon phone state. So what's my phone doing? Is my phone idle? Am I getting a call? Am I transferring a call? Am I in a conference call? So all of those things are available to you. And you get the ability to do conditional behavior depending upon press duration. So did I do a short press of a key, or did I do a long press? Because it's different. And I'm going to make something different happen depending upon which one I did. All right, we've also got some press functions that are available. So I can do a dial, right? And if I do a dial, that's for something like an attended transfer or a simple, hey, I just want to press that key and dial that person. But I can also do a transfer function. And if I do a transfer function, not only can I affect blind transfers when I'm in the transfer state, but I can also affect one-touch transfers. So I can have that happen whenever I want. Really handy. Another one is send DTMF. So Asterisk has a built-in features.conf file, right? And it allows you to do things like parking, right, using feature codes. It allows you to hang up calls, it allows you to record calls, it allows you to transfer calls, but it also gives you the ability to extend so that you can build any kind of features-based thing that you want in Asterisk using just feature codes. So it's really powerful. Imagine you've got a call center agent, somebody like that. Somebody calls into them, and the first thing they do, every single time on every single call is they read back 10 seconds of a script or something like that. You know, hello, this is the ABC company. Thank you for calling. All calls may be recorded. This is John. How can I help you? So that's great, but having to repeat that every time is no fun. It's much nicer to be able to map something like that to a key instead. So somebody just presses that, they wait for a few seconds, and then they go about their business. So Smart BLF also gives you control over the LEDs. I said earlier that you had green and red depending upon what was going on. Well, what if you don't like what we set up for you with green and red? What if you want to change the behavior? What if you want green whenever somebody's on the phone and red whenever they're not? What if you want amber instead because you want both the lights on? What if you want an indicator to be solid on for a state, or ringing or blinking fast or blinking slow? You've got full control over the LEDs now that you didn't have before, and that's great. You've also got ring control. So if my phone's sitting here and let's say Sean's phone is ringing, I can have my phone play back a ringtone. And it might be a special ringtone, one that I've defined just for Sean. So whenever his phone is ringing, I get the ringtone on my phone to let me know that his is ringing. That's really great, especially for some kind of scenario where you've got a secretary and you've got an office manager. All right. How does it all work? It'll start to make sense as we kind of go through it. So it begins with contacts. Here's what contacts look like in firmware 1.3. So we've got, this is the point when we break out the laser pointer. We've got Billy there, right? And so Billy's extension 102, he's available, and here's some information about him. His email, his organization, he's a marketing manager, he works in Huntsville, and he loves YouTube, right? We've also got these built-in soft keys there. We got one for intercom, we got one for monitor, and on another screen we've got one for dial voicemail or transfer to voicemail. But all that's fixed. You don't have any ability to manipulate that. And here's what contacts look like before, because contacts are just stored as XML nodes and XML files. So we've got a group here. We've got all Billy's information, first name, last name, contact type. We define an email for Billy. We define a number for Billy, and that's how we call him. And that's it. So that's nice, that's simple, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of capability. So in the 1.4 firmware, we don't have the concept of numbers anymore. Those have gone away. And instead of numbers, we've replaced that by customizable actions instead. And an action is something that references an application, or it references something like a number to dial. In addition to that, actions can have headers. And a header is used to send custom strings back into the asterisk dial plan. Why do we want to send custom strings back into the asterisk dial plan? Well, maybe we want to do wacky things like send a voicemail or intercom or monitor or anything else you can dream up. Because you can take those headers from the asterisk dial plan and then go parse them and then do different things. We also have got wildcard capability for simplicity on some of those headers, and you'll see that on a slide that's coming up in just a minute. So the dial VM, the intercom, and the monitor function are no longer bound to specific soft keys. These are now actions that you configure yourself using those headers. And we've also got user presence and device state available. So contacts look a little bit different, right? So we've got some actions up top here. We've got office, intercom, monitor, pickup, send to VM, all those things I kind of talked about. And over here we've got device state and we've got user presence. So that's, it gives you a little bit more visibility in what's going on with the person, and it gives you this big group of actions that we've programmed for this one. So what does that look like? Here are contacts now. I think I'm actually going to come out front because it's easier. So here's Billy. He's still got his email address. He's got all of his actions there. So we've got one called primary. We've got office. We've got intercom. We're sending some headers back into asterisk with a value feature intercom. So we can do dial plan parsing on it. We've got one for monitor that we made. We've got one for call pickup. You can see that does a dial of 102, but it prefixes 2 asterisks there. We've got one for send to VM, and there we do another Digium call feature. And here's where the wildcards come in. We're sending a diversion header back into asterisk. And then we've got one for My Fancy App, so that pulls up the app. And so what does that look like? That looks just like that. Whoops. Haha, that looks just like that. So everything's up at the top. We can see all of those. So we made office, there it is. We made intercom, there it is, monitor, etc. So all of those things show up as actions now that we can do on Billy as a contact. So it's a lot more flexible. We really, really like it. But that's only half of the picture. What about key presses? Well, actions are tied to contacts, and something needs to define the behavior of those rapid dial keys, so that thing is called BLF items. What's BLF items? Well, it's an XML sheet that defines the rapid dial keys. So the first thing is it defines where it is. What's the location? Is it on the main screen? Is it on the side screen? What's the index number, starting from 0 going down? And does it have paging, yes or no? So is it the kind of thing that's going to stay on one page, or is it the kind of thing that's going to be on every page as you're scrolling through on a D70? Or maybe it's a blank key. All right. Then you've got to define the associated contact or phone application. So it's either going to be a contact or it's going to be some app that's on the phone. It's going to be based on the contact identifier or your application identifier, and you can see that in Sean's presentation, or in your custom app. Then you can define the key press behavior. So that's for the phone state, right? Am I idle? Am I dialing? Am I connected? Am I transferring? Am I conferencing? Or the target status. What are they doing? Are they idle? Are they on the phone? Are they ringing? Are they on hold? Then we get to the long press and the short press behavior. So press and long press actions, right? What action do we call when somebody presses it? What action do we call when somebody long presses it? And then we've got the functions for both press and long press. Do we dial, which just does a regular dial? Do we do info, which pulls up the contact's information? Do we show an application? Do we transfer them to another caller? Do we send DTMF? Or do we do nothing? Because maybe you want a key to explicitly do nothing. And then we've got indications. So do we play back a ringtone or don't we? And then we can control the LED. So just like I said, on, off, short, fast, what color? Red, green, amber. So that gets set up with a new phones type keyword called BLF items in Res Digium Phone. And it's retrieved by the phone from the file URL prefix. So again, trying to move all of those things to one location. And so that's it, right? It's just an XML file, Bob's XML files, or Bob's BLF items, sorry. So here it is. This is kind of what it looks like. So we define a BLF item, we define where it is, what its index is, the paging, what contact it's for, and then we start defining behaviors, right? We build behaviors based on phone state, based on target status, based on press action and press function, long press action and long press function. So all of those things get defined. So in this case, I've got one that opens up with a phone state for all states, and whenever the target's idle, whenever I do a press on them, it does my primary function, it does a dial. Whenever I do a long press, it calls intercom instead and it does a dial. So for that, I've built a key that will just dial you, or if you long press it, it'll intercom you. That's kind of fun. All right, I'm not going to go through the rest. It's a lot. But why does Smart BLF exist? Well, it exists for two reasons. One is to make hard things easy, like call pickup or intercom or call monitoring. And it also exists to boldly go places that no Digium phone has gone before. So you've got long press functionality now instead of just short press functionality. You've got blind and one-touch transfers that you couldn't do before that you can do now. You've got the ability to load applications into the foreground. You've got the ability to control LEDs. You can play back ringtones when somebody else's phone is doing something. And you've got control over absolute positioning and the ability to send in-call DTMF back into Asterisk for whatever feature you can dream up. All right, we are almost through. We're going to have to dive back into a little bit more of this, though. So back to contacts. Now, you can see all these actions that are there, and that's kind of a lot, right? So what controls the actions? Well, they're all visible by default when you define them, but there's something called display rules that allows you to make them go away. So why? You want to hide things, right? Why do you want to hide things? Well, if you've got a user and they're on the phone and they're seeing actions that they shouldn't be doing for a particular state, that's bad. So you want to only present them the interface that they need to do the function according to what's going on with the phone system, according to what's going on with their phone, what's going on with the target, or whatever it is you can dream up. And we do it so that the list is small, right? In this case, going back, right, we've got all those things sitting there. And that's kind of a big list. Maybe you really don't want the person using the phone to see all of those. Maybe you want to shrink it down a little bit. And so display rules are for that. So display rules is another option in the phones type, contacts display rules in Res Digium Phone. And there it is, it's just another XML file. And it looks a little bit like this. So you define a display rule, you turn something off, and then for a particular behavior, you can turn something back on. So that allows you complete control over what somebody sees for a contact when they're on the phone. All right, we've made it. We're at the end. We did a new DPMA release, version 1.7, with 100% more cowbell, new phone firmware with 200% more awesome. Questions? In the back, yes, sir, in the green shirt.
Is the Smart BLF stuff, is that a phone firmware feature or a DPMA feature?
The question was, is the Smart BLF capability of the phones useful outside of the DPMA, or is it tied to the DPMA? And the answer is yes, it is completely usable outside of DPMA. So it's phone firmware. You can configure the whole thing in XML. There's a node just called BLF, or called Smart BLF, and there's a BLF items definition that you can define, and it'll tell the phone what file to go out and retrieve. And then for the display rules, that's actually a fragment that's contained inside of the contacts application. So you simply define that along with the contacts application app config in the XML. And all that is documented on the wiki. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
And you define the smart BLF rules on the initial, the first key, not one of the third ones.
The question was, can you define Smart BLF rules on the first key? And the answer to that is the first key is always going to be a line key on the phone. The way we built the phone stack is that we always prefer lines to anything else. We prefer lines to applications. We prefer lines to contacts. So whatever lines you attach to the phone are going to show up in order first. So that'll push down any, so in fact, it won't even push it down. Really, it'll hide it. It'll be behind the line key. So you don't ever want to put something on the main screen in index 0. Otherwise, it's going to be hidden by the line. And you don't get any Smart BLF capabilities with the line because the line is something that you simply make calls with inside of the phone application. Smart BLF is more driven around contacts and apps.
Any other questions for Malcolm? Nope. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Malcolm.
All right.